So in today's video, we're gonna put Hyper-G round through its paces, taking a look at the hybrid system with normal Hyper-G and Hyper-G round. Ali is gonna test Slinko Confidential in a full bed versus throwing Hyper-G round in the crosses of Slinko Confidential. And I'm gonna test how Tourbite Diamond Rough fares as both a main and a cross, using Hyper-G round as the other string in that respective hybrid. So a bunch of super nerdy, super gritty string reviews to come.
So I've been trying new string setups, as even though M8 was a magnificent string, I did want to revisit on my previous strings, which was the Slinko Confidential. I absolutely loved that string when I was touring, and now I think it's time to kind of revisit and see where it feels. So unofficially, the Slinko Whiteout is my new racket.
I'm giving her those Slinko Whiteouts for now because she had a tournament to play and her blades are cracked. So that's kind of like not an official switch, it's a temp switch, so don't get all too excited about it yet.
And we tried the Confidential and Confidential at 50 pounds.
So I didn't actually string her rackets at 50 pounds. I told her that's what I did because otherwise she's just gonna get in her head about it. I strung them lower at my usual tension, 49, 46, because we're going to an 1820 now, and because they were thicker gauge strings, she got a lower tension to kind of add a little bit of power back into the setup. It's just the manipulation game that you gotta play.
So initially, I felt like the strings didn't give me as much chord penetration as I would like. I was able to maintain the ball in play, but when I needed to create more, like I needed to create pace in the rally, I couldn't do it. Everything just landed very, very short, and it just made me feel like maybe it wasn't the string for me. However, I gave it more thought and I did practice more, and as the string loosened up, I found that it redirects power way more consistently than other strings.
I thought, let's stick with 16 gauge and see how it goes, because the 16 gauge was really working in her other racket. I think it was too stiff and too thick for her. It's hard to get strings to snap back when they're thick and it's in a denser pattern. So I think that's really the story about why she found that string setup to be so boardy and firm feeling and unforgiving.
In matters of spin, I feel like this string was very comfortable just to create anything pretty much. Stop spin, back spin, it was really comfortable. Just felt like they needed to loosen up a bit, to be worn out a little bit in order to feel that I could do, like I could be more aggressive with the string. So I think that it would be great to give it another shot, because I did feel like higher temperatures, faster chord, this string holds up great. Maybe trying a thinner gauge would be the way to go. Okay, no, this one.
Okay, so you did feel more spin with that.
Oh yeah, this one was a lot easier to create spin.
So that's Confidential with Hyper-G round.
I felt really comfortable from the very beginning using this string setup. The Confidential on the main with the Hyper-G round on the cross. Regardless of who I was playing, this string setup helped me to create spin, have lots of control on the court, lots of ball penetration.
But then suddenly we add that round cross and it opens things up, and that's another thing about having this round cross with these poly hybrids that work so well.
This string held its weight very, very well.
What?
Like weight behind it kind of thing, but no.
It helps you hit a heavy ball?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I can say it in other words.
Yeah, say it. That was a weird thing to say. Yeah, just...
Yeah, okay. Like if you're punching and you hold your weight kind of thing, or your... I did ask who I was playing if they felt any different between both of the rackets. And I have to say, everybody thought that the weight that came from the ball from this setup was a lot higher than the Confidential and Confidential string.
So Beckett made me try Hyper-G and Hyper-G with round in the crosses and compare and contrast the two. And to be honest, I didn't notice a single difference at all. I really liked both strings. They both were instantly recognizable, instantly trustworthy, and gave me consistent feedback and consistent performance. But to say that one performed differently than the other, I'd be completely lying to you if I told you I found any sort of noticeable change in behavior in the ball, in the response, in the feel.
Viewers, in Simon's defense, I tried them in his rackets as well, and they also felt the same. The only setup where it didn't seem to matter as much was in Simon's 1619 whiteouts, and I think that's probably because they're 1619 and the whiteout 1619 pattern is so open that you're gonna get those free-flowing mains pretty easily. You don't have to go for these slippery coated strings to get that kind of snapback action going and find this spin. So yeah, even for me trying them, like I tried to feel the difference. I was like, are you getting anything from this Hyper G round in that setup? And the answer was no, not really.
Both age the same. I did a really good job of rotating, and I have to pat myself on the back for that. I don't often do that. A lot of the time I kind of develop a favorite racket and just stick to that until it's done and then switch to the other one. But yeah, both of them played in very similar conditions, constantly switched out. I really wanted to find a difference, and I just simply could not.
So for my setup, we were taking a look at Hyper G Round and Tourbite Diamond Rough. I set both rackets to be strung at the same tension, so 49 pounds in the mains and 46 pounds in the crosses of my Slinko Whiteout 1820. But in one racket, we had Tourbite Diamond Rough in the mains and Hyper G Round in the crosses, and then in the second racket, we had Hyper G Round in the crosses and Tourbite Diamond Rough in the mains. And honestly, I really wasn't sure what to expect with either setup. I've kind of been tinkering a little bit with the rough main string and something like restring sync in the crosses because that really lets things open up because restring sync is so slippery. While Hyper G Round is slippery, it's not like next level restring or Tourmaline level of slickness, and I don't think that's a bad thing because for me the more slippery a string is, generally that can lead to control issues with some additional launchiness, especially if your swing speeds are more variable. Whereas the less slippery strings, while they don't last quite as long and the spin's not as good, I think the feel is better, it's more connected, it's more dialed in, and the control is quite a bit better, and that's what I really loved about Slinko Hyper G Round the first time I tried it. So for me, the main difference between these two setups was really all about how it aged. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, give me the rough mains and the round cross all day long. There's great snapback. You really feel that ball dig into the rough string. Tourbite Diamond Rough is one of the best strings on the market. I think for ball bite, you got that great Tourbite crispness, but because the Diamond Rough is quite a bit softer, the dwell time is great compared to a full bed of rough. You get more snapback, so the ball pocketing is a little deeper, it's a little richer, a little more muted because Hyper G is not quite as connected as like the Tourbite formula, but it's still good, and I think the better durability is worth it. But still, because you have those mains free flowing against the cross, the notching does occur. And because Diamond Rough is such a high friction string, once that string does start to notch, the strings stop moving pretty quickly. It doesn't take a large percentage of notching. I would say like 20% notching through the main string, and the string bed starts to lock up and you get a less consistent launch angle. Sometimes it's super low, sometimes it's a little bit higher. It's hard to find that reliable access to spin. On the other hand, I didn't really get that when I had Hyper G Round in the mains, and I still got a really nice grippy feeling on the ball. It's really interesting using a rough cross because you get that grip, but you also get a little bit of kind of interesting slip, and it probably leads to a lower launch angle. The ball pocketing, I don't think it's better. It's probably a little bit worse, but it's a different feel. It's so much less of the string pocketing the ball. It's more of the string kind of compressing the ball and flattening it on impact, which is a very interesting feeling. That's something you really get if you try like a full setup of Kevlar for example. Once that string setup aged, I thought it aged a lot more gracefully than the rough mains because it wasn't relying on snapback as much when it was fresh. So when those main strings did notch, which they did, it didn't feel quite as detrimental to the spin because it feels more like you're getting the spin from the grip on the ball rather than the snapback. Still, I don't think either of these string setups are the way to go. I have not quite found the right use case for rough strings when it comes to poly hybrids. And I thought for sure here we'd be on to a little bit of something, but not quite. I think the better story here is it's showing that the round string is a great way to add life to a textured setup, but I think that's still probably best achieved with like a 6-sided or a 5-sided or a gear shaped string rather than a textured string. Do I think Hyper-G round is worth experimenting with? I would say it depends on what you're looking for. Randomly, if you were to give each out of 10, what would you give them?
I think this one would be 8 out of 10. And then this one would be a 6.5. 6.5 out of 10.
Is pretty good. In a full bed, I think great idea. If you like that Hyper-G feel, which is like pretty neutral, slightly muted, but still firm and pretty responsive, and you've been looking for that in a round string, maybe you want something like more crisp and more direct than Poly Tour Pro, then Hyper-G round is super easy to recommend. If you want something way better lasting than Alu Power, but sacrificing a bit of that feel, then I think Hyper-G round is a good way to go. Otherwise, if you're looking for a cross string for your next poly hybrid, Hyper-G round's definitely worth looking into if you're okay with that firmer feel and you want an overall neutral feel. So that string lets the main string shine. It let Confidential shine for Ali in those whiteouts, but it opened it up a little for a little bit easier playability. It let that Tourbite Diamond Rough shine for me, but it opened it up better and unlocked more durability. So if you're just looking for something to let your main string shine, but you want a little bit better playability, a little more long-lasting string, and a cool neon green classic color, then Hyper-G round is definitely worth a try.
We're really proud to be working with Solinco now and having their products at our store. We offer sets for different Solinco products, and you can of course check it out at the TennCom store.
We've just figured out some shipping options, so hopefully it's a little bit more accessible.
Both are green.